Hey guys, it's Brayden and Rachel from Freedom Landing Pages. We're back to talk about food sustainability today, as well as health consequences of the industrial agriculture.
Yeah, that's a mouthful is what it is.
Yeah, it is. It really is. It took me a
It,
few tries to get that one.
yeah, and it's a difficult concept if we're going to be honest. It's something that a lot of us just don't think about nowadays. A lot of, our generation, I know especially Rachel's like they don't cook for themselves really. So, you
Yeah.
know, the thought process of sourcing your food and stuff like that, it's really probably not that common for most people, but I really want to bring attention to it because this is something I'm extremely passionate about. I grow my own garden. I'd love to have my own farm and ranch someday, raising cattle, pigs, chickens. I want the whole EIEIO farm. um, but this is something that I've been doing a ton of research in how we can do sustainable agriculture, both on the vegetation side as well as animal side. There's no need to go to fake meat. There's no need to go to these fake, high produced and high processed products. There's ways that we can get back to doing things naturally and have better tasting food that's healthier for everyone.
Yeah. Let's jump into food sustainability first, Brayden.
Yeah.
Talk a bit about that. Explain what the food sustainability is to everyone.
Yeah. So it's just creating a food system that fuels itself. And by what I mean by that is the current industrial agriculture system is fed and supplied through a lot of synthetic products. So, especially with corn, soy, wheat, they do a couple of different things where they'll spray a herbicide on the land that will kill off everything besides their crop. And then to get their crop to grow, they have to supply it with this fertilizer. And coincidentally enough, this herbicide and this fertilizer are sold by the same company. So it's just it's a process that they've created now.
One of them kills the land and the other one and it just keeps the plants alive, but
Pretty
basically kills
much.
all the dirt, the healthy soil.
Yeah, it can be like a specific herbicide so that they can spray it in a field and it'll kill all of the, oh, let's say all of the clover and leave the corn growing. So it's very systematic like
Okay.
that. And then,
That's
but what you need to do, since that killed everything else, it actually killed all of the life inside the soil, which feeds your plant. They have to come in and spray a fertilizer so that then this corn can grow, can continue to have the nutrients supplied. And this is across the board for like every agriculture product. It's very systematic at this point. In industrial agriculture, there are farms doing the sustainable method that we'll talk about. But does that make sense how they're currently growing everything in agriculture right now?
yeah.
They're
And explain why this is a benefit. Why it's a
so,
benefit to do it the way they're doing it.
so the way that they're doing it, it's easy. They can just pull a big tractor along and just, feed what they would quote as hundreds of millions of people. But it's just corn. They're growing a monoculture that's produced into different products. Corn is in almost every single packaged good that you eat. And there's no need for that, which we'll get into the health side of it here pretty soon. But what I'm trying to say is that the way that they're fueling these plants and growing them is not sustainable, because what's been happening is they're ripping all of the nutrients and the life out of the soil without resupplying it, without like putting that fertilizer bank back in. Does that make
So
sense?
yeah, so in the long run, will this just kill all the soil?
Yeah, so pretty much what's happening, and people have said we've got 60 years, 20 years, 80 years left. No one really knows, but we do know that the amount of growable soil on our earth is rapidly degrading. I don't want to be one of those people that's, doomsday's coming, because it's not. And there are ways around this. But what's really happening is to grow food in the future, you might have no choice but to use these synthetic products because your soil's got no life in it left. Your soil's got nothing in it left, and it robs you of that freedom to be able to grow your own food.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So
Yeah.
that's what current agriculture is doing, and what we promote is more, or what I promote and what I'd love to do is a sustainable style of agriculture that is very biodiverse, and it'll help you help the farmers have some money coming in no matter what, even if there are environmental stresses like the weather, like bugs, like insects, like diseases and things like that. Because that's the reason that this industrial agriculture system does it this way. They want to mitigate the risk of pest, diseases, and crop loss. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
So they're
definitely.
picking the easiest, most tried and true thing to grow 300 acres of corn
Yeah,
or something like that. So the first thing is I promote, biodiversity. And by that, I mean a farmer should be growing, corn. They should be growing tomatoes. They should be growing peppers. They should be growing peas, lettuce, really diversifying stuff, because what we found is every year it changes a little bit. Your corn might not do that great, but your tomatoes do awesome. And to grow those different things, the farmer's always going to have some income coming in. So that's how we help protect them in that way, instead of using chemical fertilizers.
yeah, that totally makes sense.
See, and then beyond that, it's replenishing that supply in the land. So whether it's taking at the end of the season all of your dead tomatoes at this point and piling them up on the land, and then covering them in more straw or something to add back to the soil mass.
Yeah, keeping the soil healthy as well.
Exactly. Well, and if you don't spray those herbicides and those fertilizers, there's still life inside the soil.
Yeah.
And they can break down that material and literally fuel your plants for next year. So the point that I'm trying to get at, and there's a lot of little nuances and things that I won't go into that affect
Brayden
this.
can go on forever.
Yeah, I could. This is something I know a lot about, and I want to do it myself. I just think it's so cool. And well, I'm going to go into this right now. To say that somebody has a green thumb is completely ridiculous. I have killed more plants. I ripped out 3 tomato plants today. I lost 100 onions because I did something wrong. And the only difference between someone with a green thumb or not is that I'm just going to keep trying. I don't care. They're just plants. They're not screaming. There's nothing like that. And I'm not hurting the earth by what I'm doing. I learned a little bit, and I'm going to try again a little bit differently.
Yeah. And next time, maybe you'll get to eat your tomatoes.
Yes, next time maybe I'll get to eat some of my tomatoes. It's been a crazy year with how hot it is and everything. But at the same time, my pepper plants are going berserk. I'm going to have, hundreds of peppers coming in here next week of all different kinds, and I'm not going to know what to do with them. But if I didn't have that, I would have lost pretty much everything. So that's a good example of, where biodiversity comes into play.
Yeah.
And why this is a good route. But the basics of natural and regenerative farming is that whatever you're taking out of the earth is getting replenished in one way or another, so that you have this self-sustaining system. So you're not trucking in these loads of fertilizers, these loads of herbicides that kill off a bunch of the pests and everything. It's all just working in harmony the way that it was intended to, and you can feed the world this way.
Yeah.
It's totally doable. It takes a little bit of a mindset shift for the population and things, but it's completely doable. And I think that kind of brings us into the next portion of the health effects, is to why you as an individual would want to be looking for this.
And yeah, why you should care.
Why you should care, yes. And, I think it's pretty obvious the degradation of the soil and that farming industry. You can tell that that's like bad for the earth, but maybe you're disconnected from it. So you're like, what does that mean for me? So the entire food system is focused on producing a large quantity of food that lasts a long time. So when they're picking, there are over 5,000 different varieties of tomatoes, but in the grocery store, you only find 1 or 2. And when they're picking these, they pick them for the reason this is going to last 3 weeks on a grocery store shelf, and I get 15 pounds per plant. And that's the only reason that they're picking those, instead of what's going to taste the best, what works well in my environment. So it doesn't have to be there's nothing I have to put into this plant.
Or what's going to provide the most nutrients.
Yes, what's going to provide the most nutrients and everything. And, there's things like purple carrots provide more nutrients than orange carrots. They don't taste quite as good in my opinion, but they do. If you wanted that as a choice, you could have it. So that's the difference between what you're going to get there. And then there's also a complete difference in the health benefits of one side of the spectrum to the other. So those industrial agriculture plants, they're getting fed with synthetic fertilizers, synthetic nutrients that end up going into your food and then what you're eating.
It's very processed.
Very processed, exactly. From the get-go, even before they're picked off the plant, the fertilizers are so processed and everything. Comparatively to if you're getting the nutrients from the soil the way that it was intended, and as well as like all of the microbiology down in there that's helping bring it up into that plant, the nutritional content has been proven to be far greater than anything that you can get from the grocery store. The way that these plants uptake the nutrients, put it into their fruit or their leaves or their roots, whatever it is that you're eating, it's always a higher nutritional content from the naturally grown stuff.
And so it also tastes really good. I don't know if you've had like a salad from a garden outside, but it's way better than just grocery store lettuce.
Some of it's like not even the same, if I'm going to be honest with you. A lot of these different things, like I don't really like tomatoes that much from the grocery store. If you go get a Sun Gold cherry tomato, I'll be picking those off the plant all freaking day long.
Yeah.
Similar with like carrots. I think carrots from the grocery store are pretty fibrous, pretty tough. If you've had a fresh garden carrot, it's crazy.
So what are like, I know that people can go to the farmer's market, and I guess like what's the solution, or like what's a possible solution?
Yeah, a possible solution, and this is going to take forever, but I think all of us can do our own little part, and I'm really trying hard to. And I hope this encourages Rachel to try harder to do this as well. Going to those farmers markets, finding the people that are producing stuff local to you, that's a huge help. Same with going to butchers instead of the actual meat market. They tend to be
market
or the seafood market. Exactly. It tends to be stuff that's going to be produced more locally to you, even if it is using different methods of agriculture. The closer that you can get to you, that's far better. And one thing that I think people often overlook that's really could change how we eat and how it affects our environment is eating seasonally. So learning that certain things only come at certain times of the year. Like, if you're going to a farmer's market in spring, you're going to find tons of like lettuce and peas and carrots, spinach and all that kind of good stuff, the cooler weather crops. And as you transition into summer, you have to be okay with some of those things like going away and changing your diet a little bit. Now you're eating squash and peppers and tomatoes. And I think we all forget that that's the way it was intended to be.
Yeah.
And even when like you're growing your own garden, like I've got in my backyard, it's not huge, but I try to grow as much as I can for, my small family. And just realizing that, well, we're not getting lettuce during the summer. It's not possible to grow lettuce in 105 degrees.
Yeah.
Can't do it. Not in Kansas, at least. Or if you have a greenhouse diet facilities, you could, but it's not possible for the most of us. So making those mindset shifts and those actual practice shifts of trying to get more stuff from farmers markets, trying to eat whole ingredients instead of all of the processed stuff, because we know the processed stuff is going to be some of the worst offenders out there.
Trying to get your food locally. That's kind of an easy way to say it.
Yeah.
Generally, not as processed.
Exactly. That the processing is what's, hurting the environment and hurting the health aspects of your food, to where we've even noticed I can eat an exorbitant amount of whole foods. So whether it be, squashes, melons, even grains of different sorts like cornmeal and things like that. And like you won't really gain any weight because the calorie intake is so much lower than any of the processed foods that you're probably used to eating right now.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. But well, all right, guys, we just wanted to bring attention to this, let you know that, there are other options out there, and the way that this is headed might not be the best direction.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Start going to your
farmer's market, butchers, fish markets, anything like that you can get, more locally sourced stuff. So this is Brayden and Rachel from Freedom Landing Pages. We'll catch you guys on the next one. Be sure to like, follow, subscribe, go to all of our different social media channels and let us know what you think. We'll catch you guys next time.
Bye. Bye.